The cornfield whispered under the night wind, tall stalks swaying like an army of shadows. The moon hung low, a pale guardian over the wide-open farmland. Out here, silence was as common as soil, but that night, it was broken by rough laughter. The kind of laughter that carried cruelty in its tone, the kind that made the hair rise on the back of your neck. Emma, a 17-year-old farm girl, walked home with a basket of eggs pressed against her hip. Her boots left small prints in the dirt road, her breath forming pale clouds in the cool air. She had been raised on this land, toughened by hard work and solitude. Her hands were calloused, her body lean but strong, and her spirit sharp with resilience. Still, she knew what it felt like to be targeted. For years, the boys in town had mocked her torn clothes, her simple way of living, her silence in school halls. They thought her quiet meant weakness. They thought her poverty meant defeat. Tonight, they would learn just how wrong they were. The crunch of tires on gravel warned her before she saw them. A beat-up truck screeched to a halt a few yards ahead, its headlights washing the road in a blinding glare. 4 boys jumped out, their shadows stretching long and menacing. They were the usual group. Kyle, the loudmouth leader with a cruel grin, Derek, his towering sidekick, Mason, who always carried the smirk of someone hiding cowardice, and Luke, the youngest, desperate to prove himself. "Well, look what we've got here," Kyle sneered, his voice carrying easily through the night. "Little farm girl, all alone, carrying her precious eggs. What you gonna do if we take 'em?" Emma stopped, her basket steady against her side. She didn't answer, didn't blink. The wind tugged at her hair, and her silence only seemed to enrage them. "Don't just stand there like some dumb scarecrow," Derek barked, stepping closer. His boots crunched in the dirt. "Say something," but Emma only shifted her weight slightly, her eyes fixed on them, calm but unyielding. Kyle laughed, but it was hollow. He pulled something from his pocket, and the moonlight caught the glint of steel. A knife. He flicked it open, the blade flashing sharp. The other boys fell quiet, their laughter dimming as the air thickened. "You're too quiet, Emma," Kyle said, twirling the knife between his fingers. "Maybe this will make you talk. Or scream." Emma's jaw tightened. She had seen knives before. Her father had taught her to use them when butchering animals, sharpening them for clean cuts, handling them with respect. But here, in Kyle's hands, the blade wasn't a tool, it was a threat. Luke shifted nervously. "Kyle, come on, man, this is going too far." Kyle shot him a glare. "Shut up, she needs to learn her place." He stepped closer, knife raised just enough to catch the starlight. Emma didn't move back. Instead, she lowered the basket of eggs to the ground with deliberate care, as if she had all the time in the world. Then she straightened, her posture tall, her shoulders square. Her eyes locked on his, unwavering. "What are you waiting for?" Derek jeered. "Scare her already." But when Kyle lunged forward, the night exploded. Emma moved faster than they could comprehend. With one fluid motion, she sidestepped his lunge, her hand snapping out to grab his wrist. Years of wrestling hay bales, pulling ropes, and handling stubborn livestock had built her strength. She twisted sharply, and Kyle's hand buckled under the pressure. The knife clattered to the dirt before he even realized what happened. "You dropped something," Emma said flatly, her voice low but steady. The others froze, eyes wide. Kyle howled, clutching his wrist, but before Mason could react, Emma's boot kicked the knife away into the grass. "You," Mason started, but Emma cut him off by stepping into his space. Her fist shot forward, connecting with his chest. It wasn't wild, it was controlled, precise. Mason staggered back, wheezing for air, collapsing to his knees. Derek roared, charging her like a bull. He was bigger, heavier, but size didn't intimidate her. She ducked low, spun, and swept his legs out from under him. He hit the ground hard, the impact shaking dust into the night air. Luke, trembling, backed away. His bravado melted, his voice cracking. She's insane." Emma didn't chase him, she didn't need to. Instead, she picked up a stick from the side of the road, a sturdy branch she had noticed earlier when walking home. She gripped it like a staff, her stance steady, her eyes cold. "Come on then," she said softly, but her words carried like a challenge, slicing through the night air. Kyle scrambled to his feet, his pride burning hotter than the pain in his wrist. He glared at her with hatred. "You think you're tough? You're just a filthy farm rat. We're gonna make you pay for this." He lunged again, fist swinging, but Emma sidestepped, spinning the stick in her hands with practiced ease. The branch cracked against his arm, the sound sharp as thunder. Kyle yelped, stumbling back. His face twisted in rage and shock. How the hell do you know how to fight? Mason gasped from the ground. Emma's voice was calm, steady as the earth beneath them. You learn when life doesn't give you a choice. Memories flickered through her mind. Her father teaching her to fight after she had been cornered by older kids when she was 10. Her mother reminding her that survival wasn't about being the strongest, but about being the smartest. Every chore on the farm had been training, every hardship had been preparation. Tonight, all of it came together. Derek tried again, charging like a wild animal, but Emma pivoted, striking his leg with the stick. He roared in pain, collapsing once more. She followed with a swift kick to his ribs, not enough to break him, but enough to make him think twice. Luke screamed, bolting for the truck. He fumbled with the handle, his hands shaking so violently he could barely open the door. Kyle, red-faced and humiliated, grabbed a rock from the ground and hurled it at her. It missed, bouncing harmlessly off the dirt. He cursed, spit flying from his mouth. You think this is over, Emma? You think? Before he could finish, she was in front of him. He barely saw her move. Her hand shot out, gripping his collar, yanking him forward until their faces were inches apart. Her eyes burned, steady and fierce. No, she whispered. This is over when I say it's over. She shoved him back hard, and he stumbled, crashing into Mason. Both went down in a heap, groaning and cursing. Derek, clutching his ribs, didn't dare move. Luke had already slammed the truck door shut, fumbling with the keys. Emma stood there, the stick in her hand like a weapon, her chest rising and falling in slow, steady breaths. The wind tugged at her hair, carrying silence now, heavy and suffocating. The boys stared at her, their fear palpable. For the first time, they realized the truth. The girl they thought was weak, silent, and defenseless was anything but. She was steel wrapped in quiet, fire hidden beneath calm. They had pulled a knife on her, thinking she would break. Instead, they had awakened something unstoppable, and the night would never forget it. The silence after her last shove lingered like a thundercloud. The bullies, groaning in the dirt, weren't laughing anymore. The night, however, was far from over. Emma's chest rose and fell steadily. She didn't shake, didn't flinch. She had been underestimated her entire life, but that moment was different, because finally, they were seeing her for who she was. Kyle spat blood into the dirt, his face twisted with humiliation. You're dead, Emma. You don't know who you're messing with. Emma tilted her head slightly, her grip tightening on the branch. I know exactly who I'm messing with. And that's why I'm not afraid. Her voice was calm, quiet even, but it carried a weight heavier than the knife Kyle had dropped. Mason tried to scramble to his feet, still wheezing from the blow to his chest. He had always been the one who followed Kyle blindly, desperate for acceptance, too weak to stand on his own. But Emma's eyes pinned him down like a hawk locking onto prey. He froze halfway up, his legs trembling. You think numbers make you strong, she said, her gaze sweeping across them. You think cruelty makes you powerful. But tonight, you'll learn that fear doesn't belong to me, it belongs to you. Luke's hands fumbled with the ignition inside the truck. The engine sputtered, then roared to life, its headlights spilling brighter across the road. He shouted from inside, let's just get out of here. But Kyle wasn't done. His pride couldn't let him walk away. He staggered forward again, his voice hoarse with rage. She's just a girl. We're 4 against 1. Emma's lips pressed into a thin line. She had heard that phrase all her life, just a girl. As if her gender, her silence, her farm roots made her something less. But she was forged differently. She tapped the branch against the ground once, the sound sharp. Then come, 4 against 1. Let's see if you're brave without your knife. Kyle charged first, his fury clouding reason. He swung wildly, fists cutting the air. Emma sidestepped with the grace of someone who had been dodging charging bulls since childhood. Her stick cracked against his ribs once, then twice. He screamed, staggering back. Derek tried next, fury blazing in his eyes. He rushed her, heavy steps shaking the dirt. Emma planted her feet and waited. As he came close, she pivoted and slammed the stick into his shin, then brought her elbow up sharply into his jaw. Derek's bulk crashed to the ground again, this time not rising so quickly. Mason, shaking but desperate to salvage his pride, lunged with a growl. But Emma had already predicted his clumsy move. She caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted it, and shoved him face first into the dirt. He screamed, the sound muffled by soil. By then, Kyle was back on his feet, red-faced and trembling. His eyes were wild, his breathing ragged. "You think this means anything?" he spat. "You're nothing, Emma, nothing." Emma's stare didn't waver. "If I'm nothing, then what does that make you?" Beaten by nothing, her words cut deeper than any stick or fist. Kyle roared like a wounded animal and rushed again. But this time, Emma didn't move to dodge. She stepped into him, meeting his fury head-on. Her fist shot forward, striking him square in the nose. The crunch was sickening, his howl immediate. Blood poured down his face as he stumbled backward, collapsing to his knees. The fight was gone. The rage that had driven him cracked under the weight of his own pain. Luke sat frozen in the driver's seat, his wide eyes reflecting pure terror. His friends, the ones he thought untouchable, lay groaning in the dirt. Emma stood over them like a sentinel, the stick still steady in her hand, her breath controlled, her eyes blazing with quiet fire. "You came with a knife," she said, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "You thought that made you dangerous. But you've never seen danger until you've seen what happens when you corner someone who has nothing left to lose." The boys were silent. The only sounds were their labored breathing and the soft hiss of the truck's engine. For a moment, Emma closed her eyes. Memories rose unbidden. She remembered the first time they had cornered her behind the school barn, mocking her patched-up clothes and stealing her lunch. She remembered the day they pushed her into the mud, laughing as she walked home soaked and filthy. She remembered staying quiet through all of it, swallowing the pain because fighting back then would have meant suspension, more punishment, more trouble for her struggling family. She remembered her father's calloused hands guiding hers when she was small, teaching her to work, to endure, to fight only when there was no other choice. Tonight, there had been no other choice. When she opened her eyes again, they burned with a fire that made the bullies shrink into themselves. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was the reckoning. Derek groaned, clutching his side. We didn't mean, it wasn't supposed to." Emma's voice cut him off. "You meant every laugh, every shove, every word, you meant it all, and now, you're reaping what you sowed." Kyle glared at her through bloodshot eyes, but even he didn't rise. His body trembled, whether from rage or fear, Emma couldn't tell. She dropped the stick, letting it fall into the dirt with a hollow thud. Then she crouched, picking up her basket of eggs, miraculously untouched through the chaos. She held it steady, her grip firm. "You should thank me," she said, her voice low. "Because if I fought like you fight, dirty, cruel, you wouldn't be crawling right now. You'd be broken." With that, she turned her back on them. Slowly, deliberately, she began walking down the dirt road toward home. Her shadow stretched long in the headlights, her figure unyielding. Behind her, none of the boys dared follow. None of them dared speak. Their humiliation was complete, their power shattered. Emma walked into the night, each step echoing with the truth they would never forget. The farm girl they had tried to break had become the storm that broke them instead.